Preocupado el presidente anaranjado, viendo que las elecciones las perdió.
Solicita a los que le hacen los mandados que se apuren pues la fiesta terminó.
Y mirando que se va a acabar el varo,
han formado un titingo. Se han negado a abandonar la Casa Blanca, a la silla del despacho se amarró. Los pelitos que le quedan los arranca, pataleando por la rabia que le dio. Y mirando a Cuba con sus batas blancas, de cabeza se tiró.
El que tenga confusión que se confunda, el que quiera claridad que venga a ver.
La jugada no es compleja ni profunda, está claro cómo quieren proceder.
Solo falta que nosotros nos dejemos,
y eso no va a suceder.
Con la conga de los hoyos no te metas.
No te metas, no te metas. Cuba viva sin que nadie la someta. No te metas, no te metas. Mi tierra linda, mi cubanía, mi bandera se respeta. No te metas. De La Habana para Santiago, defiende lo tuyo, cubano.
Que no te metas con mi tierra, que mi Cuba se respeta.
Se respeta, se respeta. Soy el mambí que aún vive con el machete en la mano. Se respeta, se respeta. No, 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 no. ¿Qué me importa si comentas?
Se respeta, no te metas. De donde vengo yo, estamos listos para la contienda.
ICE is reportedly stepping up plans to arrest and deport Haitians after an estimated 300,000 Haitians just lost their status under TPS, the Temporary Protected Status Program. The program ended on Monday after the Supreme Court last month sided with the Trump administration to end TPS programs for Haitians and Syrians. Since that ruling, panic and fear have swept through Haitian communities across the United States. According to an internal government document, the plans to round up and deport Haitian immigrants could start as early as this week. The planned deportation operations outlined in the internal government document could focus in part on the thousands of Haitians who live in Ohio, many of whom live and work in the city of Springfield.
Hello. Let's see.
ICE is reportedly stepping up plans to arrest and deport Haitians after an estimated 300,000 Haitians just lost their status under TPS, the Temporary Protected Status Program. The program ended on Monday after the Supreme Court last month sided with the Trump administration to end TPS programs for Haitians and Syrians. Since that ruling, panic and fear have swept through Haitian communities across the United States. According to an internal government document, the plans to round up and deport Haitian immigrants could start as early as this week. The planned deportation operations outlined in the internal government document could focus in part on the thousands of Haitians who live in Ohio, many of whom live and work in the city of Springfield.
What is happening?
What? Okay, hold on.
Toda Cuba está esperando que yo la ponga a gozar.
Aquí nadie tiene miedo, tú conmigo no te metas. ¡Hey! Oye, soquetón, mi alegría te molesta.
Porque tú me conoces bien en todas mis facetas. Que no tenemos miedo, sal de ahí, no abra esa gaveta.
Hello and happy Friday. Welcome to Revolution Within the Revolution. Sorry for the technical difficulties, comrades. We do not have Comrade Oye here with us, who is usually our tech expert. So today it's just me running the show. And the reason Comrade Oye, who is our co-host, is not here with us is because the centennial of Fidel Brigade is currently in Cuba, which she is a response oblate for. As many of you know, there are many folks who are in Cuba right now celebrating the 100th year of Comandante Fidel. And so we say, Viva Cuba, Viva la Revolución, and we are excited to see what comes out of this brigade and everything, all the lessons that they have to bring back home. But before that, we want to talk about, some of the things that we're going to get into today. As we just watched a video, a segment from Democracy Now!, we saw that there is an escalated attack against Haitian communities currently in this country. They are attacking Haitian immigrants. Hundreds and thousands of Haitian immigrants at this current moment are at risk for deportation. This is, of course, a broader attack against immigrant communities in this country, but it's also an attack against the sovereignty of the Caribbean and even more so, the sovereignty of countries who dare to stand up against U.S. empire. So today we have a special guest, KB, who will be joining me on the show here in a little bit to talk about what we're doing to fight back against these attacks, what we're going to be doing to fight back against the attacks on Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela. But before then, we're going to get into some No War on Cuba campaign updates. So comrades, as you all know, the No War on Cuba is a campaign update that is a campaign that we created on the last brigade, May Day Brigade, 2026, when we were last in Cuba. And this is a campaign that emerged because of the escalated attacks that are currently happening on Cuba, right? When we were there, the Trump administration had escalated sanctions, escalated repression against those who are visiting the island. It was literally something that was announced through the White House's page while we were in Cuba, right? So the No War on Cuba campaign was born out of that. And the latest initiative that we had started was the 24-hour virtual global solidarity marathon. It was a picket where people from all over the world had engaged. Folks from England, folks from Kenya, folks from the US, folks from Canada, folks from Mexico, folks all over the world who were a part of the Cuba Solidarity Brigade were a part of this 24-hour virtual global picket. And it was a huge success. Hundreds of people engaged, they tuned in, and we all got together to say, no war on Cuba, no war on Cuba, no war on Cuba. So we want to thank everyone who was a part of this effort. We want to thank everyone who is a part of the No War on Cuba campaign and the Cuba Solidarity Movement. And we want to get people involved. We want to encourage folks to join the campaign, whether you're in America or outside of America, whether you've organized for Cuba or you've never organized for Cuba. Please get involved with us. Go to nowaroncuba.com and see how you can join either a local Action for Cuba Committee's formation or the national campaign efforts that we are organizing every single day. And watch out for what's next. We're going to have some more initiatives for No War on Cuba coming up. So we encourage everybody to stay engaged. But now I am going to bring on a special guest who has never been on Revolution within the Revolution. Hey, comrade KB, welcome to the show.
Hey, comrade, thanks for having me.
How's it going? I don't think we can see your camera. Are you maybe having technical difficulties too? I know I was having some.
I see myself on my end, but I can come back or turn it back.
Yeah, try coming back and seeing if that works. For some reason, we can't see you.
Okay.
While we wait for KB, I want to give you all some context. KB is one of my good comrades here in DC. We are both coming to you from the belly of the beast. Oh, and there's KB. Welcome, comrades. KB, as I was just telling them, is one of my great comrades. We're both coming to you from the heart of the belly of the beast, so-called Washington, DC. And KB is a part of the DC Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression and the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And so I'm very, very excited for KB to be here on the show. Welcome.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so we're going to get into a conversation about these recent attacks, right? And perhaps they shouldn't even be mentioned as recent because these attacks are a part of the broader attacks on immigrants, right? The broader repression campaign against immigrant communities and the Caribbean, more broadly.
Yeah.
But before that, talk to the people about the work that DC ARPA is doing, the campaigns that you've been involved with. We all know that DC is a central hotspot for these attacks against immigrants, right? I mean, last summer we saw they had invoked National Guard, which is still here in the city, by the way. I think a lot of people don't know that. And that has been a major escalation point against these attacks on Black and Brown people. So talk to us a little bit about the work that y'all are doing.
Yeah, so once again, thank you so much, comrade, for having me. I'm very excited to be here to talk about our work and to, get into this, escalation that we're seeing against immigrants all over the country, but, right now specifically focused on Haitian immigrants. But in the DC Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, we are a grassroots organization and we organize around the people's demand of community control of the police. That basically means people's-led police accountability. We want to hold the police accountable. We want to hold them accountable for what they do and what they don't do in our communities. And so how we really accomplish that here in DC is that we put families, the people who've been directly impacted and brutalized by the police at the center of our work, uplift their stories, build informed justice campaigns around them to get their demands met and to ultimately build a movement that's large enough to demand CPAC, which is a Civilian Police Accountability Council. So this is an all-civilian board that would, have power over the police here in DC. That would have, the power to hire and fire the police chief, the power to set policy, the power to, dictate the terms of, police contracts and things of that nature. We want it all because we realize that, the police in a lot of ways are at the forefront of, the oppression that we face, in our communities as oppressed people, but overall as well. We can't forget that police are also strike breakers. So yeah, that's just a short recap of, what we do, how that ties into the overall movement here in DC. Since last August, actually, it's been it'll be exactly 1 year in a few days here. Trump ordered a occupation of DC. This is an expansion of the Safe and Beautiful Task Force. So At that time, I think it was over 1,000 National Guard troops were activated to DC. That number has since risen several times, and right now there's over 5,000 National Guard that are occupying DC, along with a slew of federal agencies. We call them the jump out boys, but we're talking FBI, DHS, ICE, Park Police, DEA. So there's so many more that I can't even think to name that have all mobilized, and they're working in conjunction with ICE, to terrorize, Black and brown people in our city, to terrorize immigrants, and to try to ratchet up the, oppression that we're facing.
That's right. That's right. And, I think like a major point in the Cuba solidarity movement at this moment, right, is that we are facing a lot of repression, right? Like we've witnessed this kind of witch hunt that was released by the State Department, right? Of so many different Cuba solidarity forces, activists, organizations, even the National Network on Cuba, which is our work, was mentioned in that full-length, McCarthyite document. So talk to us a little bit, like with the work on the ground that's happening in DC, how do you see this repression that's going on, against the Cuba solidarity movement, against the movement, against police brutality? How do you see all of that going hand in hand with the escalation of ICE in our streets?
I think it all feeds into each other. The U.S. And its imperialist lackeys is it's like a reinforcing body, and so what happens here has a relational and tied impact, to what's happening in Cuba, what's happening all across the Caribbean. So there's always an economic basis for everything that really occurs in our society. There's not a policy that any politician signs off that doesn't have an economic basis at its root. And so when we're analyzing why things happen, we have to keep that in mind. And I think the ratcheting up of repression against immigrants here is a measure to depress wages, to essentially make people scared to not fight for their rights, to not unionize or to demand higher wages. This keeps like a perpetually cheap labor force, that is easier to exploit, and that's tied to what we see happening in Cuba today and all across the Caribbean. Cuba stands as the shining example of socialism in the Western Hemisphere. 90 miles off the coast of Florida. So it's a perpetual pain in the side of the United States that they have not been able to destroy Cuba. And when we see U.S. foreign policy as applied to Cuba, it is for that exact purpose, to try to destroy socialism in Cuba by extracting untold harms against the people through the embargo. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people don't realize historically, right, the Haitian Revolution also inspired so many revolutions that followed.
It did.
Including the Cuban Revolution, right? Yep. And so I feel like it's not lost on us that at this moment that Cuba is facing escalated attacks by empire, right? Mm-hmm. Not just attacks against Cuba solidarity forces, but literal threats of possible violence on the island, right?
Yeah.
It's also coming, at the same time that they're attacking Haitian immigrants. So what, considering what's happening at this moment, this recent Supreme Court decision and the attacks on hundreds and thousands of Haitian immigrants in America, what do we think this means for the Caribbean as a whole?
It means, a ratcheting up of, repression in general, and, an exacerbation of all of these conditions, that we're seeing. Haitian immigrants and Ohio who have lost their TPS are now being called to ICE offices to, report, to either, voluntarily self-deport or, agree to be monitored 24/7, by the anti-immigrant, task force. And to be deported back to Haiti, what does that mean? That means to, go head on into a crisis that's, been ongoing in the country for several years right now, that have been caused by, U.S. interference and U.S. meddling in the U.S.'s desire and foreign policy to keep Haiti as like this semi-feudal state to, supply cheap goods, rice being chief among them. So I see it tied in that way. And that means that, for us on the left, for us in the movement, that are organizing, that means that our lines of solidarity have to be, that much more stronger. Like it's so important to, wherever we may be, to find forces that are standing up to Trump, that are standing up to these anti-immigrant policies, that are standing up to these, anti-Black policies, and, in a lot of ways, to protect our communities and to, protect our neighbors.
Absolutely. And I think it's so in DC, we had a huge movement, right,
Yeah.
to call for the freedom of Yusuf Azizi, right?
Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar, Yusuf Azizi is he was an Iranian PhD student who was repressed for his political views. He was targeted by ICE and ultimately forced to deport himself,
Yeah.
to self-deport, because ICE had held him behind bars for months, right? And essentially, they had no reason, they had no rationale, no case for why they were doing so. Everything about what they were accusing him of was incredibly slanderous. They were accusing him of having ties to terrorist organizations. They were accusing him of being a spy for Iran. And essentially, this was only because he was outspoken on the attacks on the Iranian nation, on the Iranian people, right?
Yes.
And so I feel like it's very clear just how much ICE and the attacks on immigrants are being used in this broader American imperialist war machine,
For sure.
right? The attacks don't just happen with bombs beyond our borders outside of the country, but they also happen with the people here in the United States.
Exactly.
And so I feel like, I want talk to me a little bit more about that. Talk to me about how, these attacks recently on Haitian communities, on Iranian communities, is kind of connected to the broader ways Caribbean nations and any nation that dares to stand up against the Yankees has been attacked by the empire.
Yeah, there's this, he's not famous, but he's a well-known journalist on the left, Ben Norton. He says that the U.S. hates the threat of a good example, and I think, any nation that is not in lockstep with, U.S. imperialism and its lackeys around the world is a threat to empire. And the U.S. is a dying empire. Imperialism is a dying, mechanism and organism. We see capitalism decaying all around us every day. We see it through, higher and higher inflation, stagnant wages. This reactionary move to the right, all across the country. Wholesale. So. In a lot of ways, these are the ways that U.S. empire is trying to reach out to hold on to its gains, but the world moves forward even if capitalism doesn't. And I think that is what we are seeing with these sharpening of contradictions, all around the world. The U.S. foreign policy is in 2016, I think. Obama termed it a pivot to Asia, or in 2014, he termed it a pivot to Asia, which is this, great power war between the U.S. and China. But they haven't been able to execute this grand foreign policy because there's the problem of West Asia, of Iran, of non-aligned forces that stand as challenges to U.S. imperialism, and so. We've seen this meddling and this involvement, in the Middle East, in Iran, specifically because of isn't real, because of the Zionists. The U.S. is doing everything in their power to prop up, that regime, and that involves it in these Middle Eastern wars. At the same time, it's trying to hold on to its power over here in the Western Hemisphere. That is becoming, gradually more and more tenuous. And we can connect that to Venezuela and the kidnapping of, President Maduro and his wife. Venezuela stands against U.S. empire, and so for that, Venezuela has to pay according to the imperialists. So it just shows the interconnected nature of all of our struggles, both here in the United States as the hand of repression is growing larger and larger, and all around the world that our enemy is the same, and so that means that our struggles can be united in kicking out the footstools of imperialism in the Caribbean, in Latin America, in the Middle East. Helps us here, and vice versa, when we're able to stand up and push back against the Trump administration, against these truly evil policies and practices. Do we make the movements around the world stronger as well?
Absolutely. And I think, a huge reason why the Caribbean is such a point of struggle, I think, Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, which, by the way, I forgot to say this in my intro, but we say at the beginning of every show, free President Maduro and Comandante Celia Flores. They are still held behind bars because the sham of a country that the United States is went and kidnapped them as sovereign leaders of a sovereign country and brought them to New York. I was just at the last hearing in front of the building, and we were protesting and we were saying freedom for President Maduro. People from all over the world actually came to this hearing. There were people from Canada, there were people from Mexico, there were people all over the US who showed up. It is clear that the people understand just how much a failing and sham system US empire, US imperialism is, right?
Yeah.
And I think the clearest thing that perhaps has shown that is the Caribbean, right?
Yeah.
Cuba and Venezuela. And this past year, a lot of people have been a part of the Cuba solidarity movement, the movement for the liberation of the Caribbean for many, many years. But I think this past year especially, right, a lot of people became conscious of just how much the U.S. attempts to use the Caribbean as its playground.
Yeah.
Right, as its personal backyard. Right. I mean, not even just Cuba and Venezuela. Let's look at Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
They literally went and captured Puerto Rico as a nation and made it a modern day colony of the United States. And so I think when we focus on, the role of Haiti, of Cuba, of Venezuela, and why these attacks are currently happening, we have to be cognizant. We have to be honest about just how much the Caribbean is a point of struggle because of its proximity to the United States. That's one reason, but also because of its ability to practice internationalism, practice anti-colonial, anti-imperialist struggles.
Talk about it.
And it's only, Cuba's only 90 miles away from the United States, right? Yeah. You could take a quick 1-hour flight there.
Yeah.
And that terrifies the Yankees, that terrifies Uncle Sam, that terrifies the US because they know the proximity that this little island shares and the anti-colonial history that Haiti and the current anti-imperialist struggle that Venezuela is waging. All of this terrifies the Yankees because they know that it inspires the people of the world, right? Yeah. They know the people of the world are in solidarity with the Caribbean. So talk to us a little bit more. I know I'm on my soapbox here because
I'm eating right now.
But talk to us a little bit more. Talk to us a little bit more about, how the anti-colonial history in Haiti and the current internationalism that is so apparent and practiced by Cuba. How does this challenge, the narratives, the political narratives about both countries that the U.S. media, the U.S. politicians continue to propagate?
I think it just shows that despite the billions, the trillions of dollars at this point that is in the hands of, the ruling elites in the United States, and abroad, that, no matter how much propaganda they put out, no matter, how much they try to like brainwash people into, being anti-people, into being anti-liberation, the very conditions that we're forced to live through, create the consciousness that shows us the cracks in the system, and that shows us the exploitation that's inherent, in the system. Marx had a banger quote, one of many, that capitalism creates its own grave diggers, and I wholeheartedly believe that, especially about the U.S. empire, the things that the U.S. does around the world, the violence and the upheaval that they create wherever they go, creates the very people that will build the movement strong enough to tear all of this down and to reshape society and to transform it in ways that we have yet to see here in the United States. And so that's how I see Haiti. Haiti has been a shining example of liberation and the fight for liberation. Since the 1700s, since 1791, 1792. Sorry, I can't remember the exact year of the Haitian Revolution, but for well over 200 years, they have been part and parcel a example of revolution that led to the Civil War here. Ultimately, that freed the Dominican Republic, which is something that a lot of people don't actually know. That inspired the Cuban Revolution. That inspired the French Revolution in a lot of ways. So. I feel like we all should be, pro Haiti, and uplift, Haitian revolution and liberation, wherever we see it. And the U.S. has seen that as well too, which is why it has interfered in Haiti time and time again. Why it still interferes in Haiti now. I said earlier that the U.S. wants to keep Haiti in a semi-feudal status, and I would say that of most of the island nations in the Caribbean too. It burns the imperialists that they can't do that to Cuba, that they can't do what they did to Haiti to Cuba, because the revolution there is still too strong, is battle tested against the methods of the imperialists, and so they throw their worst at Cuba too. And we saw that again with the bounty that's out on the remains of Ashada Shakur. They don't want that woman to rest in peace at all. But we see that, we clock it. But I could go on and on and on, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's talk about, what this means for humanity, right?
Yeah.
Why it's so important for Cuba to keep its revolution and for the Caribbean to keep its sovereignty. It's often really, really hard for those of us who are a part of the Cuba Solidarity movement
Right.
to get people in America engaged, right? Like to push them to understand that the struggle for Cuba is their struggle. And I think a lot of people don't realize just how much Cuba, the Caribbean, Venezuela, the Haitian Revolution has done for humanity. And so talk to us a little bit about that. What does it mean for our future as people, as working class and oppressed people of the world?
Yeah.
For the Caribbean to continue fighting, and for Cuba to keep its sovereignty, for Venezuela to keep its sovereignty, and for Haiti to ultimately, hopefully, triumph against the empire.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about it this entire time, but I think I referenced it earlier as well, which is it's international solidarity. This is all of our fights. What oppresses us here is what is oppressing and genociding Palestinians, in Palestine, is what has intentionally sought to deprive Cuba of vital resources, for the last 60, 70 years at this point. You know, like we are fighting against the same class of you know, people, because they don't just rule here in the United States. You know, they rule worldwide, and so that means that worldwide, although our struggles manifest in different ways, that we all have a vested interest in seeing the end to global imperialism, to capitalism. You know, and by uplifting the revolution and socialism in Cuba, by uplifting, you know, U.S. out of Haiti, Haitian self-determination and independence, by uplifting, you know, Puerto Rican independence, by, you know, uplifting the sovereignty of Venezuela, the return of, you know, the president and the comandante, and you know, honestly putting the criminals in the United States on trial, you know, for their misdeeds. These are all things that benefit us as oppressed and working class people, you know, and that get us closer to you know, true liberation, to a pathway out of not out of socialism, out of capitalism, you know, to end exploitation, you know, for us here, for the people, you know, in Haiti, and you know, in the Caribbean and wherever else, you know, they may exist. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. International solidarity is the name of the game.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, I think that's a great note for us to end on. Thank you, Comrades KB, for joining us on Revolution Within the Revolution. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Everybody, please follow the DC Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. They are doing incredible work. Get involved with their organizing. And yes, they actually do organize around the Caribbean as well, right? Venezuela, y'all were the first ones in the streets when President Maduro was captured. So please give them a follow. And Comrade KB, thanks for coming on the show. I love you.
Love you too, Comrade. Thank you so much for having me. Thank y'all for listening. And yeah, have a good day.
Amazing. All right. Bye, Comrade. Awesome, y'all. And that was Comrade KB. We thank them for coming on the show. And before we get into our closing, I want to talk to y'all a little bit about some network updates. So as y'all know, the Centennial of Fidel Brigade is in Cuba right now. So the donations, thank you all for donating to help us get people there, help us get material supplies there, and essentially help us get as much aid and support we can to Cuba, right? So we want to thank everyone for y'all's donations, y'all's support. Please continue to find ways that you can plug into our work and support us. We also want to mention something that is coming up, which is our Cuba 301 Political Education Series. For those of you who may not know, we had two different political education series, Cuba 101, Cuba 201, where we held political education sessions online for everybody around the country to be able to attend. And we educated folks on the Cuban Revolution, the developments of Cuba, the history of Cuba, you know, education, healthcare in Cuba, internationalism in Cuba. And we are currently in the works to create another 301 session, which will be announced in September. So please keep up to date with our socials and get involved. This is going to be an incredible 301 session. We're going to have so many facilitators, so many different topics. We're going to have people involved who were never involved with the work before, who are going to be helping us create the curriculum, create the graphics, create essentially anything to make this 301 session a success. So if you are interested in getting involved with our work, if you're interested in attending the sessions, please follow our LinkedIn, subscribe to our newsletter, continue watching Revolution Within the Revolution every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be announcing these sessions every single week as they roll out. So please keep up to date with that. Cuba 301, that is coming up. And comrades, I think that also concludes our show. So next week, we are going to be discussing a little bit about Black August. As y'all know, Black August is a time for us to build our revolutionary discipline. And there is a lot of connections between the Black liberation struggle and Cuba. So we're going to have another special guest who is a part of the Action for Cuba committees join the show, and we're going to talk about what it means to study, to train, to fight throughout the entire month of August. So viva Cuba, viva la revolución, and comrades, I love you, and I will see you next week. Thank you.
Preocupado el presidente anaranjado, viendo que las elecciones las perdió.
Solicita a los que le hacen los mandados que se apuren pues la fiesta terminó.
Y mirando que se va a acabar el varo,
Han formado un titingo, se han negado a abandonar la Casa Blanca, a la silla del despacho se amarró.
Los pelitos que le quedan los arranca, pataleando por la rabia que le dio.
Y mirando a Cuba con sus patas blancas, de cabeza se tiró.
El que tenga confusión que se confunda, el que quiera claridad que venga a ver.
La jugada no es compleja ni profunda, está claro cómo quieren proceder.
Solo falta que nosotros nos dejemos,
Y eso no va a suceder.
con la conga de los hoyos no te metas.
Cuba viva sin que nadie la someta. Mi tierra linda, mi cubanía, mi bandera se respeta. De La Habana pa' Santiago, defiende lo tuyo, cubano.
que no te metas con mi tierra, que mi Cuba se respeta.
Soy el mambí que aún vive con el machete en la mano. No, 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 no. ¿Qué me importa si comentas?
De donde vengo yo, estamos listos para la contienda. Aguanta ahí, pero dime tú, ¿pa' qué tú inventas?
Con mi pueblo guarachando, yo vine aquí para cantar. Toda Cuba está esperando que yo la ponga a gozar.
Aquí nadie tiene miedo, tú conmigo no te metas. Hey. Oye, eso que mi alegría te molesta.